say good afternoon and welcome you to the city of Seaside. We're honored to host this year's Workforce Housing Solutions Summit. Can you guys hear me out there? Thank you so much. Under the theme, Mobilizing a Path Forward. And Seaside Housing is about stability and equity, making sure that people who keep our region running can afford to live here. As the words was given to us a while ago from President Jimmy Carter, it reminds us, his words were, every human being ought to have a decent place to which to live. And I would just add to that, everyone that gets up and goes to work every day, including those that may be retired now after working a long career, deserve a house to live in to call their own.
Yeah!
Yes. You know, it's harder and harder, you know, these last couple of years, when you talk about housing and affordable housing and workforce housing, we know it's hard to afford that workforce housing. But we should live in a society that if you actually are getting up to go to work every day, working hard year after year, decade after decade, because we know some people that have been saving up for decades to buy their first house or move to the next. And so we're here to make sure we don't forget that. So I don't want you guys just to walk away, you know, saying, hey, let's work on workforce housing. Those are individuals that we're trying to satisfy a need for. They're actually getting up and going to work every day. But it's so hard to own a piece of that American dream for themselves. So today's theme is our charge, mobilizing a path forward. Let us turn good plans into keys to doors today. Yeah, give it up. Why not? Over the past several years, Seaside has moved from ideals to actions, and let me just give you a couple of those. Our Seaside Sea Grove apartment complex has delivered new workforce and affordable homes near jobs and transit on parcels that sat vacant for close to 40 years.
Woo!
And so, yes, that's one of our longtime neighborhood members there. And so, our Campus Town project, the largest mixed-use community in our history, has broken ground with over 1,400 housing units. Again, bringing more affordable housing and workforce housing choices to those that live in our communities. Yes. We also issued out a RFP for our main gate parcel on the former Fort Ord, which will be anchored by the new Superior Courthouse, which will include hundreds of more workforce housing opportunities for those that get up and go to work every day. Create more local jobs so more people will live, work, and play in the city of Seaside. Alongside production, we are strengthening tenant stability and advancing regional partnerships, cutting red tape, and we're looking how best to create better zoning and streamline our permitting process to deliver more affordable housing faster, saving each side money, the developer and the homeowner. We're also investing in places between our homes, like our Broadway Avenue Complete Street project, which will make it safer to walk, bike, and shop locally in the surrounding communities, a more walkable community. This kind of main street that supports housing, small businesses, and a shared community life. That is why today matters. You matter. The discussions you guys are going to have over the next several hours actually will move the needle if we turn words into action. So you being here matters. This room is full of doers, developers, planners, advocates, employers, and political leaders. And I want to make sure I don't forget, but I should have said this from the start. Where's my good friend, Mayor Donahue at? He's out there. We appreciate you, Mayor. So let us come here and let us compare what is working. You guys are going to talk about what's working. You're going to talk about what's not working. But don't let what's not working prevent you from leaving here with a workable plan, a workable solution. Let us leave here with actionable steps we can implement in the coming months. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the partnership that we have with Monterey Bay Economic Partnership for convening us, and to each of you for being here and bringing your expertise to the table. The panels and stations ahead are where we would turn plans into proposals, proposals into projects, and projects into workforce housing solutions for those that keep this region running. So on behalf of the residents of the city of Seaside and the city council, I want to welcome you and say, let's get to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, such a pleasure to have you all here today. And we will be putting folks to work a little bit, but should have a lot of fun as well. So I want to bring to the stage dear friend, mentor, and professional colleague of mine, our leader, fearless leader, Tara Goraya. I've been doing this work in affordable housing development and community development for 25 years. And Tara is among a handful of folks who I have the highest esteem for her vision, her commitment, and her leadership to getting the job done. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thanks, Matt. I promise I did not make him say that, so that was very touching. I appreciate it. But we indeed, I think everybody in this room also respects and totally admire the work of our regional houser, Matt Workness. So thank you, Matt, and thank you for bringing us all together. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
That's not what I want. Come on. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As the mayor mentioned, we have a lot of work ahead. So that requires a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. We've got plenty of caffeine in the bag. Thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Tara Goraya, and I have the great pleasure of being the president and CEO of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. And I'm really pleased to see everybody in this room. It's a gorgeous day outside, and you've all made the time and energy to be inside to really work on tangible solutions towards workforce and affordable housing. So I appreciate that. As the mayor mentioned, we've got planners, we've got builders, we've got advocates, government officials, community folks, industry partners, all converging and convening and coming together because this is really critical to create a thriving economic region. So to that end, I will have Alex, who's with our team up in the front, advance some of my slides. Just wanted to give you sort of a small snapshot of who we are, what we do for those of our friends in our room for whom we may be a new partner. At the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, our vision is to create a thriving region for all of our residents across all three of our counties in San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz County, with the mission to really improve economic health. And what does that look like? On the next slide, it talks about the different priority areas that we intentionally invest in to create a thriving economic region. So what does that look like? Specifically, why are we investing in these spaces? Economic development and workforce development is a coordinated economic vision that attracts capital and positions our region for large-scale investments. And skilled talent pipeline is also really important to have ready-to-work labor. On the housing side, which we'll delve into a little bit more, that matters. Why? Because without adequate housing, talent leaves and businesses cannot expand. Every new unit built not only addresses a social need, but also drives sustained economic output and workforce stability. Many folks have asked me, like, why does you're an economic development organization. Why are you guys investing in housing? Well, without investing in housing, and we need housing for all, affordable housing, workforce housing, permanent supportive housing, farm worker housing, middle-income housing, market rate housing, all kinds of housing. Our North Star points to more housing so we can keep our workforce here. Without the workforce, the economic engine does not turn. Around childcare and early learning, why does it matter as an economic mobility strategy? Affordable childcare keeps parents in the workforce, reduces employee turnover, and supports long-term talent development. It's a strategic investment with immediate and future economic returns with the young people that we invest in, especially in these 0 to 5 ages. Why are we investing in technology? Why does it matter? Technology industries have some of the highest multipliers in job creation and wage growth. Anchoring them here builds resilience, it diversifies the economy, increases our share of the innovation economy. And then finally, why are we invested in broadband and digital opportunities? It matters because broadband isn't just connectivity, it's the foundation of modern commerce. Expanding access increases regional competitiveness, attracts high-wage employers, and creates opportunities for underserved communities, fueling long-term economic growth. I'm very proud to share that our broadband team of one has successfully helped secure over $70 million worth of investment for our small and mid-sized internet service providers in our Tri-County region. You know, we may take connectivity for granted because some of our communities are very connected, but in our rural communities, our mountainous regions, it is not ubiquitous and accessible for all. So it's very important to continue to invest in infrastructure as well as digital literacy. So that's the why. And what are we doing? And why are we sort of having this engagement on multiple strategic priorities? Because at the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, which by the way now turns 10, we are a decade old, the board, yes, thank you very much, has invested intentionally in these priority areas as strong economic drivers. Before I pivot to housing on the next slide, I do want to acknowledge some of our colleagues in the room that I did not get a chance to acknowledge. The first is, many don't know that Rene Mendez is a co-founder of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. So he was behind the several brains that came together to create the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. And he's also a current board member. So Rene Mendez, I wanted to give you a shout out. And there's other folks joining us from elected officials and their representatives. I wanted to acknowledge the Office of the Speaker, Robert Rivas, Office of Gail Pellerin. We've met Mayor Oglesby, again, thank you so much. Mayor of Seaside, Dennis Donahue, Office of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, District 4, and council members from a number of our cities, including Pacific Grove and Gonzales specifically, I noted here earlier. I note that or pause for that because I think without our city managers, our elected officials, our planners, our staffers, as well as our advocates in our community, it is difficult to advocate for such projects and come up with the sound solutions. So we all kind of need to do our part, as Mayor Oglesby noted earlier. On the next slide, what are we doing in housing and what is our strategy? So one is to bring this all together here. We want to make sure we're advocating, we're educating, and we're convening, and we're coming together, bringing public-private partners together about what that might look like. Our second prong is around the Monterey Bay Housing Trust. Specifically, how do we do pre-development loans for certain projects in our region? We launched the Monterey Bay Housing Trust also roughly 8-9 years ago. With an initial investment of $1.5 million, we have now turned it into close to, I believe, $50 million. I'm looking for Julie, Julie Mahal. There she is, I'll note her. She's our partner from the Housing Trust Silicon Valley. The third is technical assistance and coordination. Many of the cities in here know us for that. We're the folks behind the scenes bringing developers together, talking to planners, brainstorming, troubleshooting the viability of a given project in a given neighborhood. So that's what folks look to for MBEP. And of course, employer-sponsored housing. How do we engage our employers and our industry partners to also be invested and have some skin in the game around housing development? The next slide is specifically in our Monterey Bay Housing Trust. We are very, I think, honored and privileged to have a great relationship with the Housing Trust Silicon Valley north of us. Julie is with that we have now funded close to 13 loans, initially with 1.5 million. We are currently also fundraising for more funds into the Housing Trust. And the total Housing Trust investment in the region since the partnership began has leveraged over 50 million. For those of you who are planners and builders, it's really tough out there to acquire not just land and permits and all that, but actual funds to get the shovel in the ground. And this strategic partner has been really fruitful and important to create the number of homes in our region. So we are, please look out for Julie and feel free to ask us about what that looks like and how maybe you or your city or your company would like to invest in the Monterey Bay Housing Trust. The next slide, let's see, what do we have? So on the employer-sponsored housing side specifically, we're working with our partners in ag and healthcare, our educational institutions, recognizing that, again, we all have a part to play. That there are partners who have land, there are partners who may have funds, there are partners that may have political influence and so much, and so there are so many things that are needed in terms of the ingredients necessary to create the workforce for our region. And we really want to honor the employers in our region who have really tried hard to do that in that space. So, however, my last slide, and before I pivot back to Matt, is we certainly have a challenge ahead. As the mayor also noted, and it's been a common theme and thread in all the conversation I've been having, that affordability is certainly a challenge in the rental market, in the market itself in terms of purchasing. And so what do? I believe it wasn't too long ago that the city of Santa Cruz was named again as the most expensive city in all of the US. So how do we mitigate that? How do we come together to create solutions? And how can we be creative? At the end of the day, it boils down to, I think, local communities coming together to be creative around the solutions. And really hoping today that that's what we can do in our various stations. Write down your ideas. There's no such thing, I think, as a silly idea. I think it is throughout the years that I've noted that we have come up with a number of creative solutions and policy recommendations that have taken shape, not just here regionally, but also statewide. And many of you are aware of our housing policy papers. All that to say, we have a lot to do. We have so much further to go. It's great to have created some housing. It's great to have advocated. So in addition to the Monterey Bay Housing Trust, where it actually created a number of units, we're also advocating for units that may not necessarily get funding out of our specific housing trust. So that's a lot of housing for which MBEP and our tiny team of 7, I believe, and 1.5 staffer are working diligently in our region to do. And we cannot do this without you and without the many members who are in this room. So on that note, I am going to transition over to Matt, who will then introduce the panel. We have a great panel. We want to really appreciate Speaker Rivas and his office and the City of Santa Cruz and others who are joining us today. Again, I hope this will be an afternoon of creativity, of innovation, and solution making. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here. And I hope you'll stick around for the mixer afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you again, Tara. Appreciate that. And as they're getting settled, we're going to have a couple dad jokes since my kids aren't here to give me the stink eye, okay? So the first dad joke is, it's got to be housing related, of course. What did the brick say to the mortar? We make a great bond. Come on, somebody. One more. Why do houses always get invited to parties? Because they know how to raise the roof. All right. So now we're going to get... I won't quit my day job. I know. Okay. So thank you again for joining me. We have Lead Butler from the City of Santa Cruz. And we also have Katie Kolichos from the Speaker's office joining us. And not only their wonderful extensive bios are on the website as well, but also our station leaders. So I invite you to review that and know who you're engaging today in more detail. But I'm going to jump right in because we are a little bit behind schedule and want to catch up a little bit. and still have time for robust discussion here. And we want to start off with what the heck happened with the state budget, and we heard this whole thing about trailer bills, and what exactly was that? And we have Katie here to help explain what was going on. I do want to highlight the governor and the Speaker Rivas's leadership on this. Obviously was critical around kind of marrying CEQA reforms along with moving forward with this latest budget. Can you give us a little more background on how that played out, Katie, and what the next steps are?
Sure. Yeah. I've been doing this for 25 years, and it was probably my busiest June in quite some time for budget purposes. We did a lot in the budget this year. We were able to come up with some resources for affordable housing. Hopefully we can figure out more as our budget situation gets better. But from a policy standpoint, we were able to make some huge policy changes, and that includes creating a new categorical exemption for infill housing for up to 20 acres for housing projects. So currently the infill exemption only is for 5 acres under the previous law. The new law that went into effect on July 1st allows for a CEQA exemption up to 20 acres. So really trying to allow projects that, are bigger than the 5-acre size to be able to come in and not have to go through the CEQA process. They will still have to go through the normal processes that the local government has for land use. Most local governments have done a lot of great work of streamlining how their zoning is working in their housing element. So hopefully those steps are eased, and then the ease of not having to do an additional CEQA analysis will help those projects come to fruition more quickly. And as we all know, the quicker you're able to get your project started, the less money and time that it'll take to actually get the project done. So a huge effort. It's been something the speaker and Assemblymember Wicks and other members have been working on for a very long time. And so it was great to be able to make that change in CEQA law. Some other CEQA related changes for housing that we were able to also do in the budget were to be able to get what are called near misses. So if you have a project that's super close to being able to get an actual categorical exemption now, but you have one thing kind of hanging out there that makes you not meet the qualifications of the CEQA exemptions. In one of the budget trailer bills, we added a provision that allows for you to only focus on the one problem that you are the near miss on. So if that is one thing you need to mitigate for, one thing you need to analyze, instead of the holistic project, you'd be able to actually use the exemption, but focus on an analysis of just that one piece. So that is another piece that will help with our affordable housing, our market rate housing, and other things, and be able to use some of the existing CEQA exemptions that are on the books. So those are the CEQA related pieces. We also did pieces related to continuing the great work that's in the Housing Accountability Act by removing some of the sunsets that would have come into play in the next couple of years, so that we can continue having, the enforcement mechanisms and other pieces that make us be able to put housing online through the Housing Accountability Act. We also were able to have the state building standards paused. So we have so many standards on the books, and we have a lot of pieces that have been added over the years. And so it becomes a lot of work for cities to catch up, for developers to catch up, for everyone to catch up. And we meet and exceed the nationwide level. So for the next 6 years, it's paused on being able to add more things so that we can have certainty in the process for cities, developers, and even your average homeowner to not have to worry about 6 things that got added on by the Building Standards Commission during a process every 18 months. So that is something else we were able to add on, and quite a few other things, including doing mitigation for VMT through affordable housing. So there's a process now that will come into play within the next year and a half that will allow developers to mitigate for VMT impacts through a fund that will fund affordable housing in the region where the VMT mitigation impact is happening. So one, a source for funding for affordable housing, but also an ability to help with VMT mitigation. So trying to get a twofer there. There was a lot going on in the budget.
A lot going on. Thank you, Katie. And I know that she threw a lot at you right now, a lot of stuff going on, but raise your hand if you know what VMT stands for. Okay, at least half to go. Okay, vehicle miles traveled.
Yes, sorry.
No, but it's okay though, because this is the right group, right? And this is part of also what you can also follow up with other folks. Many of the station leaders, pretty much all of them know at great detail what some of these things are in terms of how it's going to actually roll out. And actually, that's why we have Lee here, because what does it mean for you, some of these new provisions here that are going to come forward? What does it mean for Santa Cruz, just to help illustrate bringing it home for our region?
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Katie, for your work in the legislature. We're excited about many of these improvements that are coming down the line, not just with AB 130 and SB 131, but the future and what that holds as well. A couple things to add on to what Katie said. In Santa Cruz, we don't have a lot of projects that are greater than 5 acres, and so often we're using that categorical infill exemption in 15332. But the new infill exemption, the statutory exemption that the legislature just approved, not only goes up to 20 acres, there's a provision that I think will be helpful for some of us, and that is when there is a house or a building, for example, that is eligible for a historic register that is not listed, then right now, under the 15332 exemption, you wouldn't qualify. You would have to do an environmental impact report because that would be a significant impact under CEQA. The new law says that it has to be listed at the time of application. And so, we just had a project with 370 units. The only reason why it had to do an EIR is because one of the houses, when we did a historic report on it, was eligible for the local register. So that would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars for the developer and a year of extra processing time. So we're excited about how that will help streamline some things. Another thing that I'd point out that Katie didn't mention, the housing element programs that are implemented. So if you have an approved housing element and you're implementing the programs in that, those rezonings are exempt from CEQA. And there's been a lot of attention in the press about the rezonings equating to the changes to the sites inventory. I would encourage you to talk with your local, your attorney, your city attorney, your county council. I can tell you, we are going to be using that exemption to implement other programs, not just the sites inventory, because that's not what the law says. It says to implement the housing program. So for example, we have a housing program that says in our housing element, make all 100% affordable housing projects ministerial. And so as we go forward and do that, that would have triggered another CEQA process. And we're now able to use this exemption for that. And so we're excited about that. And of course, while it was no surprise that the Housing Accountability Act and Housing Crisis Act and Permit Streamlining Act standards got extended, those have been huge. Those have changed the way we as practitioners implement projects. And it has been the most influential thing in being able to get projects done. So instead of that expiration date in 2030 and 2034, getting those extended, it's really great. We knew it was coming, but thank you for doing it.
Thank you both. Thank you both. So, and Alex, our Director of Innovation, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide real quick. I just want to highlight this. And if you aren't familiar with this yet, many of the local governments are and have actually made a lot of progress, especially here in Seaside, and other local governments have implemented our policies over the last few years, and we freshened up our recommendations in the last couple of years. A lot of the state level advocacy that we do falls in line with these recommendations. So anytime you hear streamlining, it's basically hard for us not to like to support and plus one or even help influence or drive some of those conversations in Sacramento for our region when we see it's going to benefit our projects and get them to move forward. That said, a lot of times, and this question will go to Katie first, sometimes approved projects continue to get delayed in the building permit phase. So that's post entitlements, right? What are some effective ways the delays can be avoided? And is the state mandate, is a state mandate for shot clocks and standard approval processes needed? And what have you heard across the state, Katie, as you've participated in these kind of conversations?
Yeah, so before the speaker became the speaker, he carried a bill that set a shot clock for local post entitlement permits to have a 60-day window and to follow that timeline in order to help prevent some of these delays. But we as the state haven't always followed our own advice. We've given others. So this year, the speaker is a joint author with Assemblymember Sheavo to actually require state agencies that have housing permits to follow that same shot clock. And that bill is currently on the Senate floor, and we should be voting on it when we return. The members will be voting on it when they get back from the Senate, from our summer break, which is next week. So hopefully that will become law soon, so that state agencies also are following the same timelines. I hear frequently the frustrations of some of our departments, like Caltrans, DTSC, and others that take a very long time to approve a post entitlement permit on a housing project. So hopefully this will help spur that movement to get into the same timeline as the local government so projects aren't delayed.
Thank you for that overview. And Lee, do you have some local color on this?
Sure. So I think what I'm going to focus on more so is the entitlement streamlining. And, everyone is probably aware of SB 35, SB 423. We do not have that currently applicable in the city of Santa Cruz because we met our RENA targets and our regional housing needs assessment targets in every income category last.
That does deserve a round of applause, actually.
We'll see in 7 years. I'm going to try to be here and be able to say the same thing. But it's a tough order, but we're going for it. And one of the things that we're doing is we're using other streamlining bills. So AB 2162 and SB 2011. SB 211 or 2011 is the commercial corridors bill that allows for housing and mixed-use projects. AB 2162 allows 100% affordable projects with 25% supportive housing. Both of those end up in ministerial processes. They both trigger prevailing wage. And so we've been successful at using those for 100% affordable projects that are already going to trigger prevailing wage. And I think a big thing that we really need to do is make sure that we are informed about all of the bills and the options, and that our local government is promoting those. And when people come into our public information counters, and when the affordable housing developers are looking at things, and the small developers, because there are a lot of other things like SB 1123 allows up to 10 units on vacant single-family properties or on multifamily properties. And that's a ministerial process. Of course, ADUs are ministerial, and SB 9 is ministerial, and SB 9 doesn't have to be a subdivision. It can just be a duplex on a single-family property. And so a lot of these laws are in place to help promote housing production, and every unit counts, whether it's that ADU that goes in a backyard, or if it's a AB 2162 project, or a 100% affordable project that's not using these streamlining bills. Everything counts. The more we're educated about these, the more we can get the word out, the more people will see it and say, hey, actually, I can make money on this, right? I mean, we also want developers to be able to make money. That is their job. And so the more people we attract into the industry through things like awareness of SB 1123 and 10 units on single family, the more of those projects that will begin happening. It's just the beginning now. A lot of people say, SB 9, it hasn't been successful. There's going to be a slow run up to that, because those are single family, those are mom and pops who are saying, as my needs change, how am I going to do this? So over time, these bills are going to make a huge difference. And as we get the word out more and more, it's going to add up.
Thank you, Lee. And I'm going to continue with the question that's probably up your alley here. Two of our counties here in our region that we represent are on the coast, and so any of our projects that are directly, immediately on the coast are impacted. They're work with the Coastal Commission to try to gain approval, or sometimes it gets on their docket, whether they like it or not. And so sometimes, obviously we appreciate that the fact that this amazing commission is there to protect our coastline for all of us, to have access to the beautiful coastline that we have here. And we also want to find ways to make sure that we create housing where there are the jobs, and sometimes those jobs are very close to the coast there, such as in Santa Cruz. I understand that you were at a big meeting just this week, and you had an item on their agenda. Can you tell us more about how you fared?
Absolutely. Well, it couldn't have gone better. Yesterday, we had our downtown plan expansion on the Coastal Commission agenda. And the downtown plan expansion is expanding our look and feel of our current downtown to the southern part of our downtown, where there's been not a lot of investment over the last 50, 60 years. And so this is going to improve connections between the beach and the downtown. It's going to add public gathering spaces, including adjacent to the San Lorenzo River. We're facilitating the development of a new Santa Cruz Warriors arena that will also serve as a multi-purpose arena for events that will hopefully draw many of you all from the region to downtown Santa Cruz. And of course, we've got a lot of housing that is planned for this area. We've got 1,600 units that are anticipated, potentially even more than that, and a large chunk of those units are affordable. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And what we're planning to do to increase the percentage of affordable units that we have there. But yesterday on the Coastal Commission agenda, we actually were moved to the consent calendar and had no questions from the commission. And we've been working 4.5 years with the commission staff to get that through. I didn't say a word yesterday.
All right. He just showed up being his handsome self, and it paid off. Check it out. I love that. Good stuff. We want to see more of that. Thank you. And obviously it doesn't happen by accident. It's all the tremendous work and partnership that the city has done for years to make that happen. And MBEP has been part of that team of moving that forward for several years, supporting the specific plan and so forth. It's our pleasure. And I also want to call out the leadership of the new and fresh leadership from Commissioner Chris Lopez, who was recently part of the commission as well. I'm sure he voted in support.
Absolutely.
So having that leadership there matters a lot.
It does.
And the next question I have has to do with some moderate and above moderate income housing. I think you saw the slide earlier that showed that that is part of our regional housing needs goals, right? And everything from very low, extremely low, all the way up to moderate and above moderate is part of how we get our housing done here in our region. But that missing middle, that moderate spot is super hard to develop. The marketplace also doesn't necessarily create that on its own. There needs to be some effort, some interaction there and intervention from local government and sometimes even the state. I wanted to ask Katie, from your perspective, what is the state doing to support moderate income housing?
Yeah, so, missing middle is a huge effort that the legislature has taken and has been working on for the last number of years. One of the big hiccups is, although they can use some of the streamlining tools we have, it's the funding for it, because you need it to be able to pencil out, and there's not a lot of resources, as Matt mentioned. But at the state level in 2017, we passed a bill known as SB2. It's a recordation fee when you go to file documents related to like a refinance or other things, not time of sale. There's a charge on those documents, and part of the money comes to the state, 30%, and 70% of the money goes back to local governments. So the local governments spend theirs on things related to affordable housing, and the state, we have a couple of different programs it goes to, but one of them is the middle income program at CalHFA. So this program actually funds up to 120% of AMI and is a program that has resources that are continuous appropriation. So it really doesn't matter on our budget situation because it's funded by these fees that come in and have to be explicitly spent on housing. So this is one of the places where we've had a lot of success. CalHFA is a lender for various types of developments. It's also a lender for first-time home buyers, down payment assistance, and other things. But this program, they really jumped right in, and we're able to create a program that really gets dollars out the door quickly and to get these units online. So it's one of our bigger programs that we have explicitly for this.
Thank you for that. And I know we don't have enough time to get too far into it, but I know you wanted to tell us about how you guys use the density bonus to kind of really support that. We do have a couple slides. I don't know if you want to quickly at least just name it.
Sure.
And then if folks have more questions, then Lee's going to be here to help answer. But if Alex, if you can go to the next slide just to help illustrate.
And I'll rapid fire a few things. So we have an inclusionary requirement that 20% of the homes in a new project are at 80% of area median income, so low income. So that's not hitting the moderate income most of the time. But we do have a separate option for meeting our affordable housing, inclusionary housing requirements, and that's a workforce housing project. And that allows for higher levels of affordability, like moderate income. And so we just partnered with the school district to build teacher housing using the Teacher Housing Act of 2022 to facilitate that. And we've been successful with development agreements in getting some moderate income housing, including some for UCSC faculty and staff. And then most of our density bonus, so just because of our inclusionary, just about every one of our projects uses the density bonus. And when they're going up to the 100% density bonus, the new laws at the state under the 100% density bonus do trigger, I mean, you can do very low, but most projects are choosing to do the moderate income for that second 50%. So those are some of the tools any of you can put together. I also wanted to talk about one of the tools that we just got approved yesterday. So by the Coastal Commission, and this is a separate downtown density bonus. And we needed to be more competitive with than the state density bonus. And our council had these objectives. They wanted greater than 20% of the units at below market rate. And they wanted to still maintain some height requirements. And so we were able to accomplish that primarily by increasing the number of units that are provided as affordable in order to achieve the local density bonus, the downtown density bonus, but those are at moderate rate. So if you go to the next slide, just a couple other things. They would need to provide 21.4% of the total project, not the base project, as affordable, with 8% of that as moderate income. And that's how we would be more competitive than the state density bonus in our downtown area. There are other options as well, offsite or land dedication, and you can see those inclusionary percentages or those affordable housing percentages jump up substantially. But there's the density bonus that is offered in exchange for that. And then in lieu and combination of those options can also work. And next slide. So they do need to forego the state density bonus in that scenario, and then they would get a FAR, a floor area ratio bonus, which is the ratio of square footage that's allowed to the area of the site. And then we would have an architectural review committee that they would agree to come before. And final slide. This is just the height limits that our city council was interested in implementing, and so we were able to establish those as part of this voluntary approach. They can still use the state density bonus if they want, or they can choose this alternative path, and this alternative path is likely going to result in more affordable housing. We won't be, the trade-off is we won't be getting those deeper levels of affordability unless they're doing those offsite options. If they're doing those offsite options, then most of the funding that we get for those projects is going to be targeting the very low income. And so that's part of the trade-off, but we think that because they will be choosing different ways to get that density bonus, we'll have a mix of all the housing types through this downtown plan expansion area.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate that. So he will be giving a workshop on this later on if you want to sign up for that. So we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes. Just want to leave with very quick status reports on what's happening at the federal level, and then leave you with a kind of a call to action on the state front. On the federal front, very quickly, many of you have read and heard that the big beautiful bill that was signed on July 4th was ugly to most, but there was some historical investments that were included in especially around the 9% and 4% tax credit programs that essentially provide really historical investments for the foreseeable future, including the fact that on the 9% it was increased by about 12% each year for a while here until it's rescinded. And also the 4% tax credits, for those of you that kind of track and understand those things more, essentially allowed for a rule change that essentially would double the amount of utilizing those 4% tax credits by making a tax-exempt bond requirement basically much lower, cut in half. So just essentially making the scarce dollars go further and creating more units. So if you want to learn more about that, we have a gap financing station over here, and we have experts that can tell you more about exactly what I just mentioned. At the end of the day, this also means that there is a lot of appetite out there for tax credits in this new kind of paradigm shift, and there may be a middle income tax credit down the way that could, again, that connects to the moderate income conversation we just had. So final topic is the Estate Bond Act for 2026. That is one of the premier conversations that's happening at the state level. It's a 2-year essentially conversation bill, both in the Assembly, 736 Wicks, and Senate Bill 417 by Cabalden. And essentially we're talking about a $10 billion play that would essentially fund a set of state level programs that have been successful. There's tons of track record there. There's over 50,000 units of pipeline across the state that would be unlocked over the next few years if this were to pass. And so I want to give this to Katie is there any finer points that we should know about as these bills move forward to the legislature?
Yeah, so AB 736, Assemblymember Wicks's bill went through the Assembly. It's now in the Senate, and it and the Senate companion are over there. Policy conversations are still going on, although end of session is soon. It's like a million years. If you are in the legislature, you can get a lot done. So conversations are still going on. Plus, we're continuing to figure out what are the programmatic funds, where is it going to go. We have some tried and true programs like MHP and others that are always funded, and we have some other things that people are looking for. So those discussions are still ongoing. So if you have certain programs that you've utilized in the past that you're really interested in, be sure to let your assembly members and senators know.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Lee, do you have anything to add or close us out with?
Sure. Just in terms of making sure that you are ready for the funding that's coming downstream. These things, as we all know, take a lot of time. The Pacific Station North project that was shown, the groundbreaking was shown on an earlier slide. That's going to be occupied in the next few months, and 125 units of affordable housing with 25% supportive housing there. We've been working on that project, not me personally, because I haven't been with the city for 20 years, but our team has been working on that project for 20 years, working back and forth with the Santa Cruz Metro and updating the general plan and the zoning and working with the Coastal Commission. These things take a really long time, and so looking in advance, working ahead, we've got Caltrans properties that we are seeking to acquire right now, and we're coordinating with our legislators to try and facilitate that acquisition for affordable housing projects. We're loaning money to nonprofits so that they can acquire projects and they can be ready. And we're leveraging our Affordable Housing Trust Fund and seeking additional grants to make that money go even further. So that, coupled with the many streamlining opportunities that we talked about earlier, are all things that we need to be doing so that when these funds become available, we can jump on those opportunities.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time and your expertise here, lending and joining us today. So that concludes this panel conversation. We want to take the next 20 minutes to take another stretch break. Please get some refreshments, mingle a little bit, but this is kind of part of where you have a little bit of a task, is to connect with at least one, maybe if you have time to go to 2 stations, and just try to leave them, we have a note taker at each of our stations, and some of the station leaders can also help facilitate this. The goal is to, not only based on what you just heard here, but also your experience, right, as practitioners in our region. In these topic areas, let's take pre, post entitlement streamlining. What in that space do you need to see in order to see more progress, right? There's other stations, the small or medium-sized projects. We want to see more of those, right? The 4 to 100 to 200 unit, developments. What will it take for you to participate or be part of or contribute to those kinds of developments through your work? What do you kind of policy decisions or resources, etc. We want at some point, if not today, but soon, we will turn these into actionable things that we can work on together. So that's the goal in the next 20 minutes, and then we'll all come back and have another panel conversation convened by our colleagues around employer-sponsored housing. So thank you so much, and have fun for the next 20 minutes. Thank you.